I'm hoping that, in future films you'll include deaf people. That, that will mean a lot to have for the deaf community and a lot for your audience as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Hi. I have a simple question for Zach Exento. Before you went into film the movie, did you watch all of the original episodes to get a feel for Spock and his mannerisms, or
I did not watch the original series. I had the advantage of working really closely with Leonard leading up to the production, so I took advantage of that. He and I met a number of times, and he was such a valuable resource for me, and he made himself so incredibly open and available to my questions. So I really used that initially. I started watching the original series actually when we were shooting. I would watch it in my trailer, like there was basically always an episode playing when I was sort of hanging out in my room. And that was really great because none of us really, I don't think I can speak for myself, but none of us, and JJ was very clear about this from the beginning, this wasn't an endeavor to try to recreate what was created before us. That was certainly a template, it was certainly a baseline, a foundation for us, but we were all encouraged, and I think all of us did our own work and did our best to bring our own interpretations in a world that is not the same world that we live in now, that in which that show originally took place. So for me, it was a combination of those things, of utilizing Leonard and doing my own research. I read a lot about the world, I read a lot about the character, but I didn't really, I felt like the words that Bob and Alex gave us and the situations the characters found themselves in were really the most important thing. So that's where I started. Thank you. Thank you for that.
This is for you, Mr. J.J. Abrams. What inspired you to bring back the phenomenon? What inspired you to bring it back, Star Trek?
Thank you for your question. Honestly, when they came to me and asked if I'd be interested in producing Star Trek, although I was not a massive fan, I could completely appreciate that there were so many people who were, and the idea of investigating Kirk and Spock and sort of how they came to be was very interesting to me, and so I said yes, and I immediately called Brian and Bob and Alex and Damon, the other producers and writer, and we just started meeting and talking about stuff. And we worked on the script for, the story for a long time, and Alex and Bob went off and wrote the script, and when I read this script, it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was full of characters, huge action. It was like spectacle, and it's from Bob. But no money needed. It really was a great script. And I gotta say, the idea of doing Star Trek was suddenly something that it had nothing to do with necessarily having been a fan. I suddenly was. And I just knew I would be so jealous of anyone who was directing that movie, every day on the set. So I said yes to direct it.
Thank you. Mr. Abrams, this is a question for you. I noticed that in a lot of your work you have a unique talent to bring a lot of blending of action, drama, and emotion into each part of your work. And starting watching Felicity and Alias and great works. Mission Impossible 3, that was one of my favorites, actually. Yeah, and so how is it that you communicate that similar style from your image in your brain to the rest of your actors to be able to portray such vulnerability and strength at the same time?
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. The truth is that my favorite movies, my guess is your favorite movies, are movies that combine characters that are relatable, that are complex, that have, they're broken in a way, but you believe them and they're real, and they make you feel. And then they're thrown into the craziest shit of all time, and suddenly it's like the best. It's the Reese's peanut butter cup of movie. It's like the chocolate, fantastic stuff. So for me, combining those two things is like the key to having it work. Whether I'm writing alone, whether I'm working with Alex and Bob, or with Damon, and it's so much fun working with these guys because we've been working together since, Alias. It's an amazing thing to kind of work with people who inspire you to do exactly what you're talking about, to kind of keep pushing you to try and find ways to feel deeper and more about characters and then put them in situations that are increasingly unbelievable. The funny thing to me is that a lot of the stuff that you think people might have problems with, they don't. Like, people will go anywhere. That's what's so cool about, fantasy, sci-fi, horror. People will go there willingly. Like on Fringe, we did the pilot, and Alex and Bob wrote that with me, and thank you. And the pilot, it was insane. Like, the main character shares consciousness with her unconscious boyfriend who's turning invisible because of this chemical he was exposed to, okay? So people saw the show, and no one complained about that. No one was like, oh, come on, invisible, consciousness, the tank, altered states, bullshit. No one said that. But they were like, okay, wait a minute, like Harvard is gonna have a free lab? Anyway, but...
that's the only true part. And that's the only true part.
Everything else is a lot. But that's the key is characters you care about. So thank you for thinking we do that. And I have to hand it to the actors who take these things that we all write and they bring them to life so you care. If not for people like Zoe and Chris and Zach, we would be unable to do anything. So thank you. Thanks.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions.